Well, howdy, friends and floorheads, and welcome back to the wonderful world of eternal lies, where everything is fine and nothing bad ever happens. Um, a long journey has brought our investigators halfway around the world to distant Bangkok, where they're continuing to pursue the cult of an entity called the Thing with a Thousand Mouths. After witnessing a truly horrific set of underground deathmatch fights, our heroes elected to present themselves to the local cult contact they knew about, Daniel Lohman, as if they were representative of Jonathan Brooks from the cult's Mexico branch. Lohman appeared to take their claims at face value and agreed to take them to meet the mysterious SS, the Bangkok cult leader, at the remote island base the following morning. Will this bold gambit pay off, or are investigators being led into a trap? Elsewhere, as night falls over Bangkok, early morning sunlight filters through the tall, narrow windows of Joy Grove Sanitarium halfway across the world in Savannah. Edgar Job sits in a small examination room, smoke curling from his cigarette, not looking at the doctor speaking to him. I want to follow up on something you said yesterday, Edgar. You said that you weren't in charge of the cult back in Los Angeles, you weren't responsible for anything they did, but that you were still important. What did you mean by that? Job's face is downcast, and he takes time for a long drag on his cigarette before answering. That's just something that Chavaria said before the fire and everything. He said I had a special role to play, and he put a special spell on me, just me, before we started. I know it wasn't really a spell, Dr. Keaton. I do know that. That's what I thought at the time. That's what he said it was. And what was this spell supposed to do, Edgar? He never said. I mean, I survived when a lot of other people didn't, right? But it wasn't really a spell. There's no such thing as magic. It's probably nothing. He stares at the ceiling molding above Dr. Keaton's head, where a water stain in the shape of a mouth moves its lips to whisper something he can't hear. It's probably nothing. See you on the other side. All right. So, when last we left our heroes, they had an evening meeting with Daniel Lohman and talked their way into a trip to the island to meet this mysterious SS person. And also, Sal and James had a meaningful conversation in the evening. For those who are concerned, by the way, Chris had to step away for a moment. He should be back. So Sal may be a little bit quiet for the first part of this session, but that's fine. So I guess the question is there anything anybody wanted to do before, getting a good night's sleep and then setting off to meet Lohman in the morning?
I think the only thing... Oh, go ahead.
Not in the evening, but early morning before we meet up in the lobby for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Alice is going to knock on James's door or intercept him.
Open the door. I'm not ready yet. I'll be down in a second.
That's fine. No rush, James. Can I come in?
Slow me getting ready, but sure.
Alice will step inside and kind of look the other way to give you a little bit of privacy. You weren't in the Great War, were you, James? You weren't in the trenches?
No. I was in the service. Actually started my military career or my police thing there. I was in a Fort Sill in Oklahoma. I was in military police there. Why?
it's being in a war is different. It does something to you, and I just want to say that it's what we are now is we are in a war. This is a war situation, and I see you and the others, well, struggling, but you've got to look at it as a war situation. So everything
I don't know what Sal said to you, but everything's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Well, in a war, nothing's fine, but that's what we tell ourselves. Because there's no way to go on. And Alice is looking at you straight on. And the thing is, we can't turn on each other. We need to stick together. That's the only way we get out of here, or any of us get out of here. So we're in this together.
The only reason I'm here is because of that. So you might be concerned about me, but you shouldn't be concerned about that.
I just want you to know is we're in this together.
I understand.
Okay. Then I'll leave you to it and see you downstairs for breakfast. You want me to order some coffee up front?
Yep, sure. Yep.
Okay. See you in a bit. And she'll leave.
Okay. So a little bit later, everybody's downstairs grabbing some breakfast. What are folks bringing with you? I mean, I know for a while we've had a duffel bag full of cricket bats and other assorted equipment there. What are you traveling light? What are you planning to have with you?
I'm going to encourage Sal to bring the duffel. And I'm just going to bring my piece and keep it in the small of my back.
Okay.
Adrian has their umbrella, of course.
Uh-oh.
Watch out.
It is the rainy season, so yeah.
Of course, yes. It's just monsoon season, you know. They absolutely have their notebook that they've been keeping. Not as much of the things that we've been collecting. Maybe just keep that here. But definitely their notebook, and the switchblade that they always keep on them but don't really use is just for last resort. They're traveling quite light.
Okay.
Alice is dressed tropically, I'd say, but in a manner that does give a suggestion of a medical profession. And she's bringing her medical bag, which is quite big and very much packed with lots of stuff. So, but you look at Alice, and the first thing you think is nurse. So she is not hiding that aspect. And Alice is going to suggest that because did we bring the Bible from?
The Testament, the big book from Los Angeles. I don't think so. I thought you left that back in Chicago.
Okay, we left that back. But I think Alice is going to suggest that we bring something of what we have, a legitimate thing, either from Brooks or from Los Angeles, so that we can show, as proof or as a bargaining chip. To show like, hey, we know stuff, we've got stuff, and there's more.
I mean, you've got some of the letters that Brooks sent back and forth, but
that should be enough.
SS person was part of them, so.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then, Chris, there was a question about if you're bringing the big duffel bag full of exciting accessories on this little boat trip.
My first instinct would be to bring it. However, I will definitely leave that up to the group because, as you might have seen, I'm like a bull in a china shop. So, if it's going to disrupt our chances to make some headway, I'm more than willing to leave it behind. I may cry some, but
I think
I
we
would
want you
bring
to bring it. Yeah.
okay.
Okay, fair enough.
So bring in the
And
bag of goods.
and just to be clear, I mean, there's not like a Tommy gun in there. It's just like your cricket bats, and
Yeah, no.
presumably have handguns and stuff. All right, cool.
Brian,
So
just checking because there may be something else that Adrian brings. I think the journal that he had that had all the drawings in it that burst into flames, right?
well, that was the book that got sent to Sal's
No,
girlfriend.
ages back. That they found in the strongbox.
Oh, when you found the yeah, that has burned up and is gone.
So no more pages from that.
No.
And did we keep any of the books from the auction, the Ayers auction?
I believe you returned all those to the library.
I just wanted to double check, just to make sure we didn't have them, because if we did, he would have brought them. And he also brings a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, just to be sure.
Sure. Yeah, you can
You said later. I thought you said ladder.
I mean,
Gotta
also
bring the
might
ladder
come in
with you,
handy.
You never know.
Yeah,
But that's all.
very true. Okay. Without further ado, you guys head over just kind of down the street to Daniel Lohman's apartment. He's actually waiting outside. And when he sees the four of you approaching, you get up to him, he just kind of nods and starts heading towards the harbor, doesn't really say anything. He leads you down to an area of docks where you see a lot of fishermen. A lot of the fishermen in this area, I mean, there are certainly a lot of traditional rowboats and small sailboats and things, but a lot of the folks around here are starting to use what they call longtail boats, which have basically a car engine in them and then kind of a long rod that sticks out the back, which gives you a lot more steering control and that kind of thing. He goes up to a fisherman who he seems to know or seems to recognize him. They talk back and forth in Thai briefly. Lohman gestures back at the four of you, and the fisherman starts to nod and then sees Sal, and then starts, yells back at Lohman in Thai and points at him and points at the boat. A little more haggling goes on. Eventually, Lohman kind of does this, finds a second boat, and he says, you're too big to go with everybody else. So he's basically got a boat for Sal and a boat for the other four of you.
Dr. Adrian, can you ride with Sal? I don't like the idea of him being by himself. I don't want any of us by
I
by
can
ourselves.
swim.
I know, Sal. I need you to protect Dr. Adrian, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
You never know when I'm going to jump overboard.
All right.
Won't let you do that, Doc. Hector, maybe go with a duffel bag.
All right. So you guys are able to get on board. These are not particularly big or fancy boats. There's not a lot of excitement to them, but there is enough space for all of you. There's not a lot of moving around. They're loud, so any conversation is more or less going to have to be shouted. And without much ado, the group of you set off down the coast to the southeast. It's about a 3-hour ride. It's not real comfortable. It's loud. It's boring. Most of what you're driving past is just sort of jungle with some, you see intermittent fishing villages along the way. Clearly none of them are as westernized as Bangkok is.
Is it
and
rough or is it smooth sailing?
It's relatively smooth. I mean, you're relatively close to shore, so you're not getting a lot of big choppy waves. There are a couple bumpy stretches, but
I think Alice is just sitting there with white knuckles, staring at the horizon.
okay.
And on one of the bumpy parts, she gets sick.
Okay.
So she's good in cars and good in planes, but boats are not her.
Mm-hmm.
And I give you like because I don't say anything, but I give you like, you okay? Look.
And I just, I smile, but it's not a very happy smile.
Okay.
And sadly, we are about 12 years before the invention of Dramamine, so just kind of have to suffer through it. Lohman, for his part, is mostly just sort of sitting there lost in his own thoughts. When Alice gets sick, he probably just sort of glances over. He doesn't have a lot of expression on his face. He doesn't say much. But eventually you start making your way closer to the destination. There's a pretty large island, maybe 5 miles offshore at this point. And where you're heading is actually a much smaller island kind of next to it. It's maybe half a mile long. It's not particularly large. Just mostly this kind of rocky outcrop in the ocean. Pretty much covered in jungle foliage. As you head down the edge of the island and get closer, you can see there's a stretch of beach where a couple good-sized boats appear to have beached and then at some point burned. And then a little bit farther down the coast from there, there are a couple of docks, and the boatmen pull up there, and Lohman gets out and gestures for you guys to get out as well.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Was the route that we took to get there direct straight to?
It looks like they, you could have maybe taken a little time off if you had gone straight down, but they kind of followed the coast a little bit. It was not like they took you on a roundabout route or anything. It looks like they were just sticking closer to shore.
Yeah, my reason for this is, would it be able, given a map that had this island on it, can we, find it on the map?
Yeah, I mean it's a known place,
Okay.
and yeah, it's not like there were, and you have seen a couple other boats along the way, but they've just like been offshore fishing, so it's not like there was anybody else trying to beat you there or anything. You feel like you would have seen anything like that.
Thank you.
So, you get to the docks, which are pretty badly maintained. They're clearly pretty old. There's a boathouse which is like half collapsed in. And beyond that, there's like a pair of stairways kind of winding up through the foliage to a large house, which looks like it's the only building of any significant size on here. And he basically starts heading up the stairs.
Are there any other boats tied up, or does the boat that brought us, does it stay there?
It stays there until you guys are probably about halfway up the stairs, and then you hear the engine start up and they sail off.
I'm going to go to Lohman and go, when we're done here, how are we getting back?
They'll come back at sunset.
Okay.
They're superstitious. He says they don't like to stay here.
And why is that? What do you mean superstitious?
He kind of shrugs. Demons, monsters, ghosts, take your pick.
I kind of shoot a look to the other three of you.
Elves aren't for everyone.
So you make your way up the stairway. There's a pretty good-sized greenhouse up here. Probably half the glass in it is broken, and there's a lot of stuff that is either grown up the sides or grown out of the top of the greenhouse. It clearly has been tended in any meaningful way in a long time. There's a little garden shack, where you would guess there's tools and stuff. And he basically leads you more or less straight up to the front of the house, which I will. That's the wrong picture, but it's okay. Close enough. It's just this sort of big, not really colonial vibe, but it's a little bit of a mixture of Western and Asian styles. And the whole place, as you get close to it, kind of has the same vibe you've been getting all along here. There's vines and mold growing up the side of the place. A bunch of the windows are broken. It is clearly, not had any maintenance for a long time. There's no sign of any electrical lights or gas lights or anything on there. And he kind of walks across this wide, fancy terrace up front with a lot of cracked tiles and stuff. Goes up to one of the front doors and, knocks 3 times real loud. And then without kind of waiting for a response, he opens the door. It opens up into a big foyer, clearly once very nice. You can see it's got like a little balcony around upstairs. It's a 2-story, so and there's some sort of greenish light coming in from the mildewy skylight above. There's doors off in all directions and like 2 big not spiral but curved stairways kind of in front of you. Very sort of Gone with the Wind kind of vibe. Very, very dramatic look. There are bits of broken furniture here and there. The place is just a mess. It looks completely abandoned. But after just a second or two, a woman kind of comes around the corner downstairs from beside one of the stairways. Thai woman, maybe 30, dressed in very kind of traditional garb. She's not, I wouldn't call her beautiful, but she's got these very big eyes, and she's kind of looking at all of you very intently as you arrive. And Loman kind of speaks to her in Thai. You catch the words Brooks and Mexico along the way. And she smiles and she looks at the 4 of you and she says, "¿Qué noticias de la boca de México?" Which Alice knows means, "What news of the mouth of Mexico?"
La boca de México está silenciosa, or something like that. The mouth in Mexico is so quiet.
Well done, Naomi.
And she kind of does this a little bit. And just kind of gestures for you to go on.
Do you speak English?
Of course, she says. I assumed Spanish would be more preferable for a group from Mexico.
Well, we went to Mexico and we were in Mexico, but just like Brooks, we're not originally from Mexico. My colleagues are better equipped in English.
Of course, she says. She does have a little bit of an accent. I'm not going to try and replicate a Thai accent, but her English is very good. She says, "So, tell me your story."
Perhaps in a more, because we're just standing in the hallway?
In the foyer. It's a nice foyer, but...
Yeah, it's a nice foyer. Perhaps in a more, I look around, comfortable setting than just standing out here in the hallway.
And she doesn't even really look to follow your gaze or anything. She just says, "This mansion is not structured for comfort."
Alice is going to glance at Adrian, and then she's going to say, as you and Trammell suspected, Brooks looking into Merida did not turn out well for him.
Are you saying he is dead?
What would you think of that if he was?
I would be surprised, I think. Brooks is certainly a fool in many ways, but He
Quite
does not
cautious
seem
of a
like the
person.
kind of man who risks himself.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what was that, Mac?
It's just like quite cautious a person I've seen.
Not cautious enough, she says.
It's hard to be these days.
So while this, this kind of intense conversation is happening,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to start casually walking around this foyer, just kind of looking at things and, trying to, in concentric circles, sort of, just slowly getting farther and farther from the conversation, just casually, just looking around. I want to see if she
Okay.
reacts to that at all.
She doesn't say anything, but I mean, you know that she is constantly aware of where you are.
Good.
She's not like turning to follow you or anything like that, but you can tell that her her attention is looking in that direction. Craig, would you be interested in spending a point of sense trouble?
Interested? No, but I can.
I mean, that's a question where the answer is almost always yes. I just
well,
like to
do
give
you
you
want
the
me to spend a
option.
point, or should I roll for it?
No. Sense trouble is a pool.
Right. But typically it's a roll, right?
Oh no, you're right. I'm looking in the wrong section of sheets.
Yep.
Yeah, you can make me a sense trouble roll if you like.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend any points.
Okay, your
so
TN is 5.
Oh, I will spend a point.
Okay.
You're very convincing. There you go.
All righty. So yeah, you're kind of walking your way around, looking around, and again, it looks like most of what you can see from here is kind of clearly abandoned and unmaintained, and you're just kind of checking around. And at one point, there's just in a lull in the conversation, you hear like the scuff of a foot, or maybe the echo of a stifled cough or something from the balcony above you. And you are sure that there is at least one other person here that you have not seen yet.
So I'm going to interrupt the conversation once I hear that. Kind of come back to her right at the edge of uncomfortable closeness, but not quite that point, and go, is your friend going to join us? And I kind of gesture up to the balcony.
And she actually steps into you.
Ooh,
like at the uncomfortable point that you were avoiding. And she just kind of looks you in the eye and goes, snaps her fingers twice. And you all see from the edges of the balcony around you, like 4 or 5 Thai men with rifles just kind of point down over the balcony towards the group of you. And also one of the doors to the side opens, and stepping out is the enormous Thai muscle man that you guys saw at the fights. And she, looks you straight in the eye, but she seems to still be talking to the others and says, as I said, Brooks was never cautious enough. I am a very cautious woman.
I'm going to turn to you, Alice, and go, I think we're making the right call here. This is far more impressive than what we saw in Mexico.
I'm going to nod and, just share a look with Adrian and Sal, and then look back to her and say, I do hope that we will be able to do business and perhaps share some knowledge.
I'm always interested in sharing knowledge. What is it that has brought you all this way?
A desire for the truth, not the lies that Echevarria told and that Trammell is still peddling, or the misguided attempts from Brooks, but the real truth.
And she kind of, sorry.
Sorry. I look towards Adrian.
Adrian takes out their pack of cigarettes. Do you mind?
She shakes her head.
Offers one as well.
She shakes her head again.
Indeed, I do say we are keeping with theme here from what I've seen of this lovely mansion. It does bode well for my own personal theories.
And at this point, she kind of steps away from James and walks over to Adrian, again, getting to that kind of uncomfortably close distance.
Even closer.
Okay. And she says, "What is your name?"
Which one, surname or given?
I'm just very curious that none of the letters I've received mentioned any of you. You seem to be interesting people.
Quite
I feel as though you would have caught attention. And she actually reaches a hand out and just kind of runs it along your cheek.
While she's doing that, he's gonna just whichever of the men are closest. You're just gonna look and see if anywhere visibly on their body they have that tattoo.
I mean, the guys upstairs, it's hard to tell. They're kind of in shadow from down here. The one other guy who's downstairs, other than Loman, is the big muscle man, and he's got a bunch of different tattoos on him. You don't see that particular one at a glance.
We are quite interesting, aren't we?
Indeed.
Adrian.
And, she kind of, Adrian kind of rolls it around in her mouth a little bit and smiles. And then kind of looks to Alice.
Alice DeLacy.
And she does the same thing. She kind of repeats it slowly to herself, like she's committing it to memory. And she turns her look to James.
And at this point, I have kind of returned to my taking in the scenery mode, trying to be very casual, unaffected by the muscle man and all the rifles.
Yeah, he is openly tracking you with his eyes.
Yeah,
and if you get close to any of the hallways or anything leading out of here, he just kind of wanders idly a few steps in that direction.
And I definitely don't go that far, right? But I hear the names being said and her repeating them, and then there's a silence. I have my back to the group, and I realize I turn it over and I go, James Burton, and I turn back and continue looking around.
Okay. And then she looks up at Sal and says, "And you, sir?"
In his best Italian accent, he says, Salvatore.
I have to say, when you went to the fights, you definitely caught Tawi here's attention, and she points to the big guy. Says, "I think,
Tawi.
Yes, I think he would have liked to have a match against you."
Sure he would.
And in fact, it would be fascinating to see how all of you perform in a situation like that. Let me ask you that.
I think I interrupt her and go, I thought this was serious. Is this all just games? Is that what we do here?
I am hearing a lot of words from all of you. I have yet to hear you explain your presence here. You've been coming around investigating our situation with your Thai friend. And there have been rumors in other places that a group of travelers have been causing trouble. It's
That's
important
us.
for me. That's rather what I thought.
I gesture towards Alice. My associate has a proposition, and I think this is where we figure out whether, in fact, you are serious or not.
And she kind of walks over to Alice and puts her hands under her chin and just says, please go ahead.
Alice looks at her, and then Trammell sent us to Mexico. And he's, when we were done there, he sent us here. But I think that we have more in common and more to learn from you, given what we've seen, because of course we want to know. We wanted to have some idea of how things in Thailand are progressing, and it seems a whole lot more successful and more suited to us than Trammell's attempts in Los Angeles and Brooks's flights of Mayan fancy.
So you're saying you want to what? Join our organization?
Well, I think that we would prefer to align with Thailand rather than Los Angeles.
We greatly increase your chances of being successful in the States than you ever would have get with Trammell. You see what a debacle LA has been. You're soon going to hear probably news from Mexico if you haven't already. Everything points to you being a serious person. We're serious about getting things up and running in the States.
Well, perhaps not the States, but Africa as well.
And I kind of,
And you guys can see Adrian in particular, but I don't think it's something that any of you would have a hard time seeing. Her gears are definitely turning on this. And I think to Adrian in particular, it doesn't seem like she's thinking, oh, how can I take advantage of this? It's like she's trying to line up the pieces in a way that makes sense to her.
If I may, terribly sorry. I can already assume what the answer is, but terrible to make assumptions. What is your name?
And she kind of smiles and says, I am Savitri Sirikan.
Savitri Sirika.
And she says, I feel like if you have been privy to Trammell's and Brooks's information about the cult, you should know this. So forgive me if my question seems basic. Do you know what the difference is between the fragrant honey of Bangkok and the nectar of the other mouths?
I'll be honest, not exactly. But that's because I wanted to come in blind. I specifically asked that I have a chance to come to the answer myself. It's a bit of an indulgence for me to piece things together. I have my thoughts, but I chose to be left in the dark.
And Tramel only peddles lies.
Because it seems that in their markets it is more than anything just a commodity. Something to be bought and sold, or I guess only sold. Not as much thought behind it.
So she kind of fishes in her robe, blouse, wrap, whatever it is, and pulls out a little like dark amber glass bottle, like 3 inches tall, with like a paper seal on it and some kind of tie, character kind of stamped on top of it. And she offers it to Adrian.
I'm going to take it from her and drink it.
Okay. That is not what I was expecting.
James? What? James? Can I intercede at any point?
I mean, do you wish to let him do this?
No.
Okay. So are you trying to grab it out of his hands? Are you trying to prevent him? Are you saying something? What are we?
Well, and as soon as Dr. Adrian kind of reaches for me, I'm going to stop. Right. So I'm not determined to do this, but I'm trying to impress onto her that we're in this. Right. So as soon as you, Dr. Adrian, grab my wrist to stop, I look at you and I go, she wants to know if we're serious. And I turn to her and I say, are you testing us?
Sal takes off his jacket.
Okay.
And then takes off his shirt.
Okay.
He says, I'm tired of this dick measuring contest. He looks over at the big man and says, hey, big man, you ready to throw?
And he smiles, and you can see that his teeth, he's clearly had a number of teeth broken in the past, and what's left of them have been basically filed to points. So it's like looking at a shark. And he just kind of looks at you and smiles.
Here, now?
And he looks at Savitri. And she says, this is not the manner of challenge I had in mind, but if it's what you're looking for. I should point out that this doesn't really prove anything about your bona fides. It just indicates that your friend Salvatore has an enthusiasm for the kind of things that our group enjoys.
So far, everything you've said and shown has lined up. I think you are what we think you are. So whatever gap there is that's preventing this conversation from continuing, just spit it out. What do you need to know?
I need to know that you are who you say you are and not outsiders coming in to destroy this.
And how do we show that to you?
Show me that you understand what this group is about. Show me that you know what the mouths are, what they connect to, what they do.
We've gotten the name.
You've gotten several names from several different opinions.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what name would be best to use here.
So,
the doctor may intercede while you're thinking of that.
Yeah.
Is that right? Just want to make sure I had it.
sure.
It was, what was the color of the sun that Adrian saw? I think only Adrian saw it.
It was. Let me remember.
Purple or
It's been a
something?
little while. Yeah, it was. It had that kind of dark ultraviolet vibe.
I think it was like a red sun on a purple sky or something. Trying to remember.
Yes, there was a. It wasn't really the sun. It was this big purple planet or gas giant or something hanging over the horizon. I don't think you actually saw the sun in that side of the world.
Have you seen the sky change yet?
And she does that sort of long head twist thing again and says, "Say more. You are all very good at hinting at things beyond your understanding."
There is very little about this I understand. I will make no lie of that. But have you seen it? In between everything and what is, what might be, there is something, isn't there? Have you seen it? The purple gas giant in the sky. When the maw breaks at the jaw.
She seems genuinely perplexed by that.
Good, perfect.
You haven't been to the temple then, have you? You haven't been to where time doesn't matter. Have you seen the creatures?
Are you talking about the nonsense that Brooks was pursuing in the jungles?
We only said it ended poorly for him, not that it wasn't fruitful.
He took us to the temple. He took us and showed us the sacrificing in times long past, but we were there. We saw the purple sky. We've heard the Great One called many things. Now I'm curious, because everything you've been saying so far is lined up, but you pretending that you understand it makes me think you have no understanding of what this is and what we're doing.
I'm going to need you guys collectively to spend me at least 2 points of reassurance. Oddly seems like the most relevant skill, but I'll take arguments for others if you guys think you have them.
You need 2 total between the 4 of us?
2 total between the group of you. Yeah.
I can spend. I've got 2, so
Let's do 1 and 1. I'll spend 1. You spend 1.
Okay. And she says, Brooks's mistake and Trammell's mistake was thinking that they understood what they were dealing with.
Exactly.
They keep the mouths too close to themselves. They are going to live to regret that one day, I think. I am not saying that the thing behind the mouth does not have vast and incredible power, but one should not approach it without a complete understanding.
Show us.
Adrian does, breaking character slightly, look at James and that, just like, no, but just as quickly as possible. Just.
She says, "Tell me what you know so far."
I look to you, Adrian. Explain it to her.
Great.
Go on.
Hello, boss.
Thanks so much.
So just because I know for the players, it has been a long while. But just as far as, looking at the notes and things that you have, it's clear that, so what you know so far is kind of the naming of the great thing goes is, Echevarria back in 1924 had told them that the thing they were serving was something called Golgoroth. But his inner circle at that time knew that it wasn't that, It was instead something called the Liar from Beyond. And Trammell seemed to believe that the Liar was actually something called Nyarlathotep. The Savitry, assuming this is the SS from the letters, which it certainly seems to be, seems to think that having that identification is correct is critical, and that Trammell is wrong. Brooks didn't seem to care that much one way or the other. It didn't seem to be a priority. And the thing that you spoke to in the temple beyond, basically said that it was or rather it didn't say specifically, but you came to know. Let me make sure I get all of this right in the right order. Look, man, there's a lot of shit going on.
Trust me, I appreciate this.
Basically, it was the entity known as Golgoroth, and this liar being was pretending to be it, right, to gain power, and that made it very angry. So you know that it's not Golgoroth, but other theories that are going back as far as what it actually is, it's hard to say much more than that.
I can imagine that we share, but I'm looking at Adrian, the Echevarria, Trammell, Brooks, it's Golgoroth, no, it's the liar, it's that, and that we say is that we know it is not Golgoroth. We know it is a liar. And that, do we share that, that it has angered Golgoroth?
I'm sorry, Alice is saying that out loud, or is it a character, player to player?
I think player. Just
okay.
Adrian would share that, just kind of go over what he knows the big players have kind of seemed to think it was. Then share that it didn't seem to be making whatever this actual Golgoroth is very happy. And we'll also bring up the Fisher from the Stars.
So, how do you know that Golgoroth is unhappy with this?
We didn't just see the sun, sorry. We didn't see the sky change. We heard something. Rumors from the ruins. From the mouth.
I mean, clearly, whatever you have said to her is, you can tell she's doing a lot of like furious recalculation in her head. This has changed her perspective on what's going on.
I am so curious about something. You see, names are very important, but very important to humans. Why are you so sure that any name we put on it is going to mean anything to it?
To bargain with a thing, you must know what it is and what it wants. And the names that mortals give things are ways to organize that knowledge. There have been many foolish decisions in the past, but there is much to be learned from what they left behind. And if we can find what this entity truly is, we can know how best to deal with it. She looks over to Loman and says something to him in Thai, and he looks kind of like vaguely affronted for a second. And she says it again, And the big guy Tawi kind of laughs and says something to him. Again, you don't understand any of the language, but from the vibe, it's sort of like, do this thing. Why would I do that thing? Do the thing. And he's doing something along the lines of, yeah, go do what you're told, little boy, kind of thing, is the vibe of it. And he kind of shrugs and goes back out the front door. And she says, I think we will have a lot to talk about, you and I. And she's mostly looking at Adrian with that. The others seem like less relevant at this point.
That's fine.
Yeah, she read the room.
Sal just over there shirtless, like, come on, hit me.
Yep, bring it on, buddy. And she says something to the big guy as well in Thai, and he kind of nods. And she says, Adrian, will you come with me to my library?
I would love nothing more.
Okay. And she takes your hand in a very sort of familiar way and starts leading you through the rest of the room. The big guy, for his part, basically just kind of does a head nod and kind of gestures for the rest of you to follow him.
I don't ask. I walk with Adrian behind them unless someone says something, but like I was invited.
Mm-hmm. And she stops and says, you were not invited to the library.
I'm going to look at you, Adrian, for some sort of signal.
It's all right, James. I've read enough books. These ones can't hurt me.
All right.
Okay.
I'll follow Sharkmouth.
So he leads the three of you through kind of a dilapidated dining room, through a couple hallways that look like servants' halls. They've got access to stairways going up and down and that sort of thing, and into a kitchen, which is actually surprisingly clean and well kept. So it looks like, if nothing else, whatever food they have here is prepared in a relatively safe environment. And there's like a table, with a bunch of chairs around it, and he kind of sits down. Actually, he puts on a pot of tea, and then he sits down and gestures for you to do the same thing.
Alice will sit down as well.
Okay.
Can't hear you, Sal.
Sal will sit down without issue.
Okay.
Which means I'll stand. I was waiting to see whether Sal remains standing or if I do, but not intimidating or anything. I'll kind of stand right behind Sal and Alice.
Okay. Fair enough. And then Adrian, she basically leads you up the stairs, and as she gets up to the top of the stairs, you can see there's all the guys with rifles who seem to have relaxed since there's nobody in that area anymore. She says something to them in Thai, and they kind of all disperse off back into the rest of the house. And as you're going through, you notice, as usual, there's, the mold and the broken furniture and that kind of thing. But you also see up in this area, there are like a lot of old blood stains on the walls. There are signs that some really bad violence happened up here some years ago. And she doesn't seem to pay any particular attention to it, but it definitely gives you some vibes. And she goes over to a pair of double doors right near the balcony where you were, and pulls out a key, unlocks the door, opens it up, and it is a very large library with these tall mahogany shelves. Big round table in the middle that is covered with books and papers and notes and everything. And there are just like stacks of books all over the place, more than even fit on the shelves. And she says, "We need to discuss my research. Let's take a 10-minute break
Good
so
God.
everyone can think about what we've done."
I'll be right back.
Well, this is going to be fun. Adrian, Savatrine
Hi.
brings you into her library, which is really quite impressive, as a private library in general. Plus one, this far away from everything. It's impressive that they have this much of a collection here going on. And, as, you step through and she closes and locks the door behind you, she does it in such a way that it's like, she brings you in as you're looking around, and she kind of stands in front of you and reaches past you to lock the door in a way that, depending on personal preferences and context, could be either extremely threatening or extremely sexy. I'm not gonna ask which way it works, but and then she kind of looks at you and again tilts her head in that way she has, and she says, "Do you know where the body lies?"
I am trying with all my might to figure that one out.
And she
I must say,
nods.
I am intrigued, though, by your approach to all of this, from what I can tell. Now, Rooks and Tremel, they, bit, excuse the pun a bit, face value with it.
Mhm.
But you seem to be taking it so close to home. The physicality of it seems to be what you care about. I mean, all of the destruction and depravity, it seems like your goal is to make it so it's part of you, part of everything you do. I've seen pit fights, I've seen the walls leading up to this library. It seems like the intensity of it is what's necessary to you.
And she says, "Make it a part of me." And she sort of looks at you, still, uncomfortably close, and sort of unwraps the cloth around her left forearm. And there, like along the inside of her wrist, is about a 6-inch long mouth, which sort of grumbles and moves its lips and sort of smacks its teeth together a little bit as though waking up after a long silence. I'd like you to make me a sanity check for that.
That sounds apt. That sounds like a great idea. I've got to be honest, amazing idea. What's the
It's going to be a TN 5.
5, you say?
5, I say.
And what would I lose?
Would be a 5-point loss. Actually, this you've seen these things before, but seeing it on a person this close is really quite disturbing.
Was that a sanity or stability? I forget which one.
Stability, sorry.
Stability. Oh no, I just forget which one you said.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just gonna do a little spend whenever I roll. Yeah, just a little spend as a treat.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I am ready for this, baby.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that you had to spend those points, is indicating that, I visualize it and well, let's do it this way. Why don't you tell me, what is it that lets Adrian keep his cool when all this is unfolding?
The thing is that it still majorly is affecting him because it's 3 out of the 5 that he was sacrificing. Something about that physicality, which was the thing that drove him to look so intently at the pit fights. Seeing it here, it's just something slightly more that just kind of drives him a bit off. But again, it's that same thing of the resoluteness of he is staring it down. Just gets to him a bit more seeing it on them.
And so she kind of eyes you to see your reaction, and you're able to keep it pretty under control, which you think on some level impresses or satisfies her.
He is also staring very intently.
Okay. At the mouth or at her or
at the mouth.
Okay. And she kind of runs her hand along the edges of it like you would pet a cat or something. And it, kind of reaches a tongue out from somewhere inside her arm and like licks her finger. And she says, "It is very important to me to know what I am becoming."
Were you mixing your words a little out there to my friends when you talked about getting too close?
I try not to make the same mistake twice.
I see. Well, you said you wanted to...
The thing behind the mouths is obviously a source of unbelievable power. But that is also the source of unbelievable danger. So I do not intend to get close to it again until I learn what it is and how best to treat with it. Which is why we must learn where its body lies. And she kind of turns away and starts walking over to that big round desk. And looking at the papers and stuff on here, just kind of at a glance, you can see that there are letters and, journal entries and itineraries for trips all around the world. Just glancing at it, you see references to Tunguska, where the meteorite hit or whatever it was in Russia. Something called the Wind Cave. There are just references to all kinds of weird and not that you have any particular occult background, but like places that have a bit of a weird reputation around the world. And from a glance here, it looks like she's been sending people to a lot of these places.
I am intrigued. If you've known this danger firsthand, why did you come back?
And she sort of shrugs a little bit and says, when you know that such a thing as that exists, it is not the type of thing you can ignore.
It's addicting.
It is a source of knowledge and power and indeed wealth, but it is also a source of danger, and I do not intend to let the danger overcome the others.
You don't want that for them. You're men.
I don't think any of them understand or really want to understand what they're dealing with. They enjoy the money, they enjoy the rush. They're not curious about what's really happening.
As is often the way.
So she pulls out one particular sheet of paper, which is just like a list of place names. And she kind of looks over it and then hands it to you and says, in your time with the others, did any of these names cross your path? And there's basically a list of maybe a dozen or so places. And I didn't think you guys were going to get here yet, so I don't have this prepared as a handout yet, but I'll get it for you. So the list that's there is Oracles of Sebek, Karnak, Egypt, the Isle of Pillars, China, the Black Stone in Hungary, the Tunguska Crater in Russia, something called the Hang Mai Den or Hang Maiden, depending on how it's spelled, in Vietnam, the Wind Cave in South Dakota in the United States, the Catacombs of Pompeii, Mount Kailash in the Himalayas, the sunken city of Non Madal, which is somewhere in the Pacific, the obelisk of Aksum in Ethiopia, the Severn Valley in England, the Great Sandy Desert in Australia. And it looks like these all kind of correspond to places where she has sent people. And she's looking at you as a list sort of very intently to see if you react to any of those names.
You know, the Tunguska incident was just a year before I was born. Well, year and a month about. Some of these I had already looked into myself before coming into the knowledge of our little community. Blackstone was more of a endemic to this cause.
How so?
Literature. I had the pleasure of finding.
I am confident that one of these holds the maw, but I have not been able to find it.
MAW or MOM?
Maw,
Okay.
MAW.
Ethiopia was where heirs went.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so sure?
They all have stories with some aspect that match the legends of the thing with the mouths. It is, of course, possible that it has hidden itself better than that, but I think an entity of such power cannot completely conceal itself from the world we know.
You think it's concealing itself at all?
I do not see newspapers or hear voices screaming about the presence of a monstrous alien thing with 1,000 mouths. So yes, I think it is concealing itself.
Oh, all right then. What is the oldest story on this list?
Probably the oracles of Sebek. The Egyptians predate most of what we've looked at here.
I was thinking that name I heard, Nyarlathotep, sounded quite Egyptian. You have to be around for a very long time to get that many names, that many stories. And there seems to be some commonalities that I've noticed, at least.
In what sense?
Kind of, are there any windows in the library?
There are these big, thick purple curtains hanging over most of them, so you're not getting a lot of light through at the moment. There's
Just
actually a bunch.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say she's got like oil lamps around for lighting mostly.
Just kind of looks out. Well, looking at the mansion that you have chosen, looking at the areas that seem to be of most potency for this, there's always something in ruins, always something decayed and destroyed. Something left behind in the rubble. Now, what remains after all is destroyed? After empires are thrown ablaze?
Only what they've managed to record.
And only the lessons they thought to teach. There is nothing new about this. Nothing new about exploiting resources, finding the greatest power possible. I don't think so, at least. And I've seen plenty times in newspapers stories of rich men exploiting the people beneath them, of the terrors of war. I think you've seen it a lot more than you realize.
What are you driving at, Adrian?
I'm not sure.
And when she says your name, the mouth on her wrist kind of.
Oh my god.
Nothing in particular. I'm just thinking, you are quite sure of the physicality, and it makes sense with the mouths being so tangible.
Where there are mouths, there must be a stomach, yes?
It is simply my background to think in a more philosophical manner. I'm not disputing what you say, simply adding my own input of how I think. I think it is with merit to consider not just the physical locations, but less tangible ideas.
I think you may underestimate the physicality of these things.
I would imagine so. Again, it is simply my nature to think more intangibly. I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm simply saying it may add something to think of both.
So we cut back to the kitchen, where Sal and Alice and James are sitting or standing in a remarkably uncomfortable tea session. The big guy, as we call him, Tawi Udom, you're not sure he even speaks English. He's certainly not much of a conversationalist regardless. Probably about maybe 20 minutes after you guys are here, just sitting in the awkward zones. Craig, you're shaking your head. Are you wanting to do something before
I'm
that
getting
much time
super
passes?
anxious. I mean, if
Okay.
at the 15-minute mark,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of pacing around, and at some point I say to Sharkmouth,
Mm-hmm.
"Do you speak English?"
Some.
They've been gone a long time. Do you know where they went?
And he kind of shrugs and does this big kind of neck crack thing. And he says, if your friend wants to learn, this is how they learn.
I'm looking at Alice and Sal. But I'm now physically becoming anxious.
James, sit down, have some tea. It will be all right.
And I do.
Okay. It doesn't really help all that much.
No, it doesn't.
A few minutes after that conversation, the kitchen door swings open. Loman comes in. He looks like he's, he was fairly nicely dressed before, not, formal, but, he had a nice shirt. But I mean, his sleeves are all rolled up. His hands look a little dirty, like he's been working outside, and he's got a little bit of a smell of like wood smoke around him. He goes over to the kitchen, the sink, and sort of pumps a little bit of water and washes his hands a little bit. Goes over to the table, sits down, grabs a cup, goes to pour himself some tea. There's no more tea. He stands up, goes to make some more tea.
Mr. Lohman, just curious, how long have you been in Thailand?
11 years now.
Do you ever get used to the heat?
Well, it's not actually that much hotter than Los Angeles was, but the humidity is really what does it. But yeah, you get used to it.
Okay. The mention of Los Angeles, 11 years.
Yeah.
Alice is quickly calculating, like, oh, wait a minute, he must have been one of Echevarria's lot. What was? Did you ever meet Echevarria?
He sort of thinks about that question for longer than he needs to, and then he just kind of nods.
You weren't there when it all went up in flames?
No, that's when we left.
You and what was his name? The one that's we met in the asylum. So that is that Henslow? No.
Job, I think, is the one you're thinking.
Job.
Okay. And he's
you and Job?
No, he says. And then you have enough of a read on people that it looks like feels like he's maybe said too much. So he doesn't kind of follow up more than that.
Okay. Alice nods and holds up her teacup for some more now that he's set another pot.
Yeah, he will pour you some. So How much of what you said back in my apartment was true? It doesn't matter now. I mean, savagery's already taking a liking to your friend. But,
Oh,
I'm just curious.
Brooks would have sent us if he could.
Sure. Well, I hope your friend is ready for what they're likely to learn. And it's just, everything is just kind of stretched out.
Yeah.
Everything is taking so long. James, what, I guess, what's going through your mind? When are you, like, what are you doing to keep yourself from doing something?
I recognize that my decision making right now is questionable. So I'm spending time second guessing myself and putting in an uncomfortable amount of faith in Alice and Sal.
Okay. All right.
So I think I'm so far successfully stopping myself, but waiting for the starter pistol to go off.
Okay.
So I'm fidgeting, I'm anxious. You see me start to say something a few times and I stop myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also trying to be very aware of, I don't want to act like an idiot and blow our cover either, especially with Adrian outside of my control zone.
Right.
So, I don't know if I'm going to break, but so far I'm keeping it together.
Okay. And what's going through Sal's mind during this extended hiatus? You're muted. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know that he would have any thoughts going on. He continues to look at the big man
Mm-hmm.
across the table, even smiles to him a few times.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he smiles back.
He is, he understands that the man is a predator and he's looking for weaknesses. So Sal doesn't show any sort of weakness. In fact, if one were to look at Sal, he is so just this is beyond it. He's not even concerned about this.
Right. Sort of unnaturally calm in the face
Yes,
of
yes.
weirdness. All right. I like it.
I think after the second tea, Alice might stand up with her bag and say, I do believe I need to use the little girl's room. Is there one here nearby? Or do I need to go outside?
Lohman says there's not really any indoor plumbing here to speak of. And he kind of gets up and sort of offers to walk you to someplace, apparently.
You can just point me in the right direction.
I think it's best that you don't wander around here alone.
Okay.
Yeah, and he basically walks you past these little, the little halls that you saw before. Actually takes you downstairs to what looks like a fairly complex set of servants' quarters. Well, I shouldn't say complex, fairly large set of servants' quarters, and basically gestures in that they're, kind of opens a couple of the rooms, and finds one that has what looks like basically, a seat over a chamber pot that looks relatively clean, and kind of gestures to that, and we'll close the door and wait outside.
And Alice, when he opens the doors and shows, she sighs and says, "Well, I've had worse," and goes in, and she makes some noise as if she's undressing and stuff, but she's getting out of her medical bag the little bottle of chloroform that she managed to obtain, and some other thing, and just moving stuff from the bag into pockets where she can more easily get to it.
Okay.
She'll make some rustling and then go back out.
Okay.
Just trying to get a bit more prepared out of you.
And I would say down in this area, as you're walking through the halls to get back of the stairs, you probably see some of the same signs of old violence that Adrian saw upstairs. Some bloodstains on the walls and that sort of thing. But he he leads you back up the stairs and back up to the kitchen.
I'll sit down with the gentleman and say, "Well, we know that once Adrian starts learning new information, he'll take his time." And I sit down. I'm sure he'll call for us when they're done.
I'm going to stand up and head towards the same door that they just came in through. I want to see what either Loman or Big Man does.
Yeah, Loman gets up to follow you. Need something?
Are you going to hold it for me? I'm just going to go outside.
As I told your friend, it's probably not a good idea to wander around here alone.
Then come with me.
And he nods. And he, basically, there's a side door not far from here where, the people could head out from here. And, jungle's not far away. It's easy to find a spot. You tell me, are you actually doing your business, or is this just mostly testing the premises?
And on the way, I say to Loman, this is taking a lot longer than I anticipated. Is this normal? Should I be concerned?
None of this is normal. As far as I know, she's never brought anybody to her library before. Your friend must be special.
All right. That's enough for me. So I'm gonna pee and come back. I'm fine.
Okay. You do see sort of, as you're taking your visit, like in the back of the house, it looks like there's what was at one point a pretty nice set of like formal gardens that are mostly overgrown. But you do see there's like a patio area overlooking those, and you see what looks like an old woman just kind of sitting there on the patio, maybe sipping in a cup of tea, but kind of just enjoying the sun on her face.
And she's beyond where I am. I'd have to
Yeah,
walk.
no, she's well in the back of the house. You just sort of get a glimpse of her silhouette from here.
So as I finish and I come back to Loman, who I assume was waiting for me at the door, I go,
"Yep.
Who's that?" And gesture to the woman.
He's been a little bit cagey lately. Would you be willing to put in a point of, I don't know, I could see streetwise, even cop talk, maybe?
Yeah, let's do cop talk.
All right. So he, again, sort of thinks about the question for probably longer than it needs. He says, "That's the grandmother. I think Savitry's attached to her. Last of the family,
She part of the business?
No, she's blind and senile and has no idea of what's going on, which is probably why she's still alive."
Okay for me to go talk to her?
No.
Okay.
Leads you back to the kitchen.
I want to shoot everybody.
I know, it's like just the tension is stretching out, and eventually something's going to happen, and I don't know what it is. So let's move back up to the library.
Yes, let's do that.
So we've got Adrian and Savitri kind of sitting at this table and having, deep philosophical conversations on the nature of the thing with 1,000 mouths, whatever it is.
I think that not realizing he's doing it because just as he's looking at all the names of the places, he has just mindlessly started scribbling on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Just different shapes in like sketches that make sense to him, but probably make sense to nobody else unless he explains them.
Sort of visual shorthand kind of thing.
Mm.
Okay. So what, like a list of the places that we're talking about, or just, what are you noting, I guess?
First, how many places are there? Is one thing
About
he's
a
noting?
dozen.
About a dozen? Okay, yeah, he's gonna note down that number. He's drawing the star symbol that he's grown kind of quite attached to, the 8-sided star.
Mm-hmm.
He draws that eye very much, again, mindlessly, as he recalls it from the stone slab.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't mean to do this. This isn't a good idea. This is just how he is giving away things he doesn't realize he's giving away because this is how he thinks.
Right.
It's like, well, I'm not saying it. That's perfect. I'm not saying it. They're never gonna know what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. Yeah.
And she does kind of observe, the notes you're making, but she doesn't give you any visible reaction to it. And after a moment, she says, "You clearly seek to understand what's going on here. The others you brought with you, are they... Do you think they want to know, or are they merely following along?"
I think they want to know, but on a merit different from you and I. See, they do want to understand, but not what's behind it. They want to understand the greater place of it in the world, how it connects to them. And I think that is a very important path to consider. Although it does mean they don't get as much of the truth behind it. They do seem interested, though. Just a different point of view.
And she gets up and goes over to, like, there's a little, like, bar section in the library. And she says, "Would you like a drink?"
Sure.
Anything in particular?
I don't drink much. I don't like an addled mind. Do you have any water?
And she nods. And she's clearly mixing something for herself. So she's got her back to you, at least for the moment, if there was anything you wanted to do.
You're just
Not that I'm suggesting you should or would. I'm just throwing it out.
All right. Well, I have my gun.
Uh-huh.
No. He because he has his notebook with him. He does have a piece of paper with him, and he is just transcribing the notes on another piece of paper alongside this one.
Okay.
But very shorthand ones, folding it quickly and putting it away.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you've got your secret transcript here.
Yeah. And then it's just taking in the room, essentially.
Okay. So she comes back to the table with, some kind of whiskey or something in one hand and just like a glass of water in the other. And she kind of, tell you what, give me a sense trouble roll.
There's no trouble here. What are you talking about?
I
There's no trouble.
mean, maybe so. We'll see what the dice think.
I'll spend. What am I aiming? What am I aiming for?
Target number 4.
Okay. We're just gonna spend one. We're gonna spend one.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah.
So as she's putting the drink down, she kind of puts her drink down where she was sitting. She puts yours, she kind of, it's weird. She kind of reaches across you to put it a little farther to the other side. And you catch just out of your peripheral vision, she has, in her other hand, the hand that was holding her drink, she's got some kind of, it just looks like a sharpened stick, like almost like the size of a chopstick or something, kind of in her other hand. And after she puts her drink down and she's moving this away, she kind of like slides it a little bit out of her sleeve.
Oh, come now. You don't need to have any facades with me. Did you want to stab me? You can be honest.
And she just kind of smiles and says, "You need to understand." And she drives it into your arm.
My God.
Can I react in any way?
Let's see.
Let's see how this goes.
You kind of, you had a moment there. You did see that it was coming. Let's see. Your target number to be hit. You're a 3, I think, or are you a 4? I'm trying to think how athletic it is. I think you are very much the bookish type.
I am a 3.
Mm-hmm.
I can scurry. I can't bite.
Right.
I can skedaddle.
What I'll say is, because you saw that coming, or saw that it was potentially coming, I'm going to let you make this an opposed scuffling roll. So I'll roll hers first.
Whip it,
Give
Brian.
you an
Whip it.
idea of what your target number is. Not great. Target number 4.
Yeah, but you're saying that to me, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Don't say, "Oh, that's not great." Mine isn't great either. Oh, wait. Sorry. That was a spend.
Well,
plus
you can, so if you're spending those 2, just roll a d6 and we'll add
Yeah.
them.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Oh, get away from me. Get away from me.
So yeah, basically you see that move coming and just, I guess, jerk back just in time. It doesn't look like, she wasn't trying to, obviously this would not have been a fatal blow.
Right? Oh, yeah.
But she was definitely trying to stab you with this thing.
Stands up. It doesn't really look like, backing away if you're just... No, usually whenever you're conducting an experiment, you get the authorization of your co-experimenters, your researchers. Could I have a bit more information?
You came here because you wanted to understand. I am offering to let you understand. And as you look at it, she's got this thing out. It is just like a sharp pointed stick, but there's something dark on the pointed part of it, like dark and like liquid or tacky, sticky, something like that. And she says, "Do you want to understand?" And she reaches out a hand.
Can we cut back to the others for a bit? I just need a second.
Sure.
Oh my goodness.
So Loman and the big man have a brief conversation in Thai. Loman looks annoyed. The big guy,
By the conversation?
by whatever the big guy is saying. The big guy seems, very comfortable and relaxed and amused on some level.
Alice is going to stand up and say,
Mm-hmm.
look at, I think it's my turn to make a new pot of tea. and she'll move to the start, puttering about. I assume there's some kind of fire or something going there.
Yeah.
And start, setting a kettle. She's trying not to show, especially not James, but she is getting a bit impatient and a bit anxious. So that's taking, not doing it, taking her time in doing this.
Sure.
Is there any indication you need help with this or want one of us to join you? Okay. All right.
Is there anything unusual about this tea that I need to be aware of?
No. She's just other than she's making sure that the kettle is going to be boiling hot. Water, that type of stuff. So she's
sure.
Just,
you got to make
around, and I assume it's a wood-fired stove or something.
Yeah, there's like a little hearth area where there's a
hearth area. So she grabs some wood and just
stokes it up
very calmly, stoking the fire. She'll hang it on and just
Okay. What happens when that's done? No one seems to be taking any particular. The other two seem to have sort of accepted this as just a status quo and don't seem to be paying undue attention.
I'm kind of hoping that something else will happen before it's done. But if nothing else has happened before it's done, she'll set the tea and just kind of put another kettle on. She's just putting kettle and. Put it.
James and Sal, does anything else happen while she's making this tea?
Oh God.
Not from Sal. I mean,
Okay.
Again, he's maintaining that I'm in control of my surroundings. You were but a small fish to me. I could eat you at any point.
No stress.
Yeah.
Got it.
So and Alice is trying to, it's just not sitting down again, just kind of puttering about, looking about.
Yeah, okay. I break. I stand up.
Okay, they both kind of look at you.
Yeah, I said, so either I can find the library by myself or one of you are going to take me there.
And Loman kind of looks over to the big guy, says something to him in Thai. The big guy just kind of shakes his head. And Loman's like, she really doesn't like being disturbed when she's in there.
Okay. So I guess I'm going by myself.
At this point, the big guy stands up and, kind of comes over to you. He's probably, at least half a head taller than you.
Yeah, Sal's going to stand at that point.
Okay. And
I'll follow you.
And he kind of, puts up, not in very slowly, not threateningly, just puts this slab of a hand on your shoulder and says, sit down.
James, we can wait a little longer. I'm sure Adrian will be done soon. And I put another log on the fire. It's starting to get
a little warm in here.
It's getting a little warm, but.
Oh, God. All right. So and not aggressively, just going to take his hand off my shoulder, looking at Alice and go, that's fine. That's fine. I can wait.
Okay.
But I'm not going to sit down. So.
Yeah, he kind of goes over and leans against the wall by the door.
Perfect.
Just kind of, one of these.
Perfect. Only door. Is this the only door in and out?
It's the only door you've used. There's another one that might be a pantry or something. It might also go somewhere else. You don't know.
Okay. I'm giving you the hard eye, Sal. Not looking to you to do anything, but the just be ready look.
When has
Sal just, he smiles. And again, it's outwardly he's showing no um, real, response like he's getting, jacked up to a fight or anything like that. He's, in fact, if anything, his breathing is very relaxed, very settled. His weight is equally distributed so that, he can move out of the way if necessary. Um, but yeah, he's not going to, posture or do anything like that. He just, again, big guy is a small fish that Sal could eat at any time.
Alice, I'd like to walk over to you if I could, and hopefully say something that would. It's not that it would be silent, but that nobody could understand it but you. And just say, how much tea are you going to make?
I'm going to say 5 minutes.
Okay. And I'll walk back over by the table.
5 minutes of tea. Interesting. Hadn't thought of measuring tea that way before.
I knew exactly what you meant.
I mean, the tension has ratcheted up a little bit farther in the room, but still, nobody's saying or doing anything here. What happens in 5 minutes, Alice?
I think in 5 minutes, she's tried to be patient. She's tried to be patient for James and everybody, but I think Alice is going to reach her breaking point in 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's been too long. It's been too quiet. Yeah.
Just say go.
What happens?
Oh, jeez.
You can just look to me.
Do you need a moment? Do we need to cut back to the library?
Yeah, let's keep
it interesting.
I'm ready to go if you need.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. Let's
All
cut
right.
back.
All right. So she's looking at you intently with these big wide eyes, and and she asks, do you want to understand? And it looks like she's almost chewing on her tongue a little bit. As you see her waiting for your answer.
Okay. Y'all get your obituaries ready. Takes a second, but completely regains his composure. Of course, I want to understand. And starts to walk forward, but saying, however, I think this would be a wasted opportunity. You see, like I said, think of it more philosophically. And I think me going this route, whatever this physical route is, I mean, getting stabbed is pretty physical, it would hinder my ability to pursue it from that angle. So...
And she kind of, without breaking your gaze, kind of gestures around at the library and the papers and the notes and says, do you think it has hindered my ability to reach philosophical understanding? To know what you are dealing with, you must understand what it is and what it means.
I'm not on your level, Savagery, nor was I trying to be.
Would you
I'm really
like
here
to
to
be?
help. I'm content in my nothingness. If you would be content with it. I think having eyes that are not that accustomed to the light are just as useful. Perhaps you see more than me, and that is something grand that maybe a part of me wants, indeed, but I think it's useful to have eyes that are not fully adjusted.
That's what your lessers are for.
Am I not them?
She just says, they're not ready, but you are.
Oh, good God.
And she puts the hand out again.
Alice, what happens in 5 minutes?
Oh, Jesus, Andy. The kettle starts to whistle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, it's done. And Alice gets up to set some new tea. Well, there's still tea.
Mm-hmm.
And, she...
And as you're doing that, the
Yeah.
big guy from his spot on the wall kind of says, enough tea.
And Alice will just, she reaches out to the kettle with boiling water and turns around to look at him and says, and you haven't heard, Alice has an American accent. But she says in this perfectly upper class British accent, she says, you can never have enough tea. And she throws the boiling water at him, just kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
If everybody's all right with that.
I mean, that is a thing that just happened.
Yep, absolutely.
So what I'm going to say is I could see this being maybe an athletics roll, because it's not really a weapons thing.
Let me see. Athletics or let me see. I've got 6 in
Take an
athletics.
alternate suggestion. All right, cool.
Yeah, well, I was thinking either that or prepared, but actually, athletics works.
Okay.
Alice is fit.
Your target number is only 3 to hit him. He's a big target.
Yeah, but she wants to do maximum damage, so I'm just going to spend 2 points.
Ooh, okay.
So
that guarantees the hit then.
I've timed this. I've been thinking how to go about this, and I just want him, because it's not going to take him down, definitely not. But I need him to be at a disadvantage, and I'm timing it just right so that he's the one who gets sprayed with boiling water, not anybody else.
All right. Well, you definitely hit him. Roll me a d6 for damage.
Okay. Preferably face.
Sure.
Oh.
Solid hit. You probably don't get quite his face, but it's like along his neck and upper chest. And he lets out a scream, not surprisingly, as the boiling water hits him. He kind of comes off the wall. Loman stands up. The other two of you, I think, were expecting something to happen along these lines.
Yes.
But I honestly... go ahead.
Nope, you tell us. Go.
I was going to suggest that this might be a great place for us to roll credits and talk about what's happened for the week.
Okay, not yet. Wait. This first
Welcome
time ever.
to our world.
First
Craig.
time ever on Third Floor Wars that Craig says no credits yet. Wait. I get veto power here. As soon as I've anticipated this, I think
Right,
that I understood what Alice was ready to do. So as soon as you grab the kettle, in the half second, the water may have not left the kettle, but I know where it's headed. Loman standing up. I am going to kick Loman to the ground because instinctively I know Sal is going to help Alice. So I want to control, and then we can go to credits. But I want to control Loman, and then I want Sal to help Alice. Now we can go to credits unless Sal has something.
No, Sal's gonna. I mean, as soon as Alice moves in that sudden explosive fashion, he. I mean, this is the point that he's been waiting for.
Right.
And his dagger is out. He's moving. I mean, he's coming in low, and he is going to take this dagger and slice open Big Man's thigh from just under his balls all the way up, sever his femoral artery.
This is strong. So we know what everybody's going to do, but I think we'll worry about the resolution next time.
Yep. All right, we'll go to credits.
In a mansion grand where secrets lie, Walter Winston lived, but he had to die. His daughter Janet, fierce and bold, hired a team to find the stories untold. Oh, Walter Winston, Mr. Mystery Man, caught in a web of a sinister plan, with cults and crimes and shadows so dark. His story ignites like a match to a spark. Ex-cop, doc, gangster, nurse in the mix, unraveling truths in a dance of tricks. Swinging through secrets, meet the moon's gleam. They chase the spurs of a deadly dream.
If nothing else, I'm glad that I got the achievement for making Craig say no credits yet. That was personally very rewarding.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this is frankly not where I expected this situation to go, or this session to go, but I'm really fascinated with the way it's developed. I think we're learning a lot about people in a lot of circumstances, so I'm very excited to see what's happening. Chris, I want to start with you. You obviously you had to step out for a little bit at the beginning, and I know I feel bad because we didn't really get to see much of Sal this episode, other than him. I love him, kind of waiting like a coiled spring for things to happen in a super relaxed way. But if you have any, thoughts and of course stars and wishes, I would love to hear them.
I don't know that I can pick a star in this particular session, and it's just because the two scenes. I mean, you have successfully physically just take the tension in me up to like, oh my God, this shit is real. So again, that is we'll say that's my star to you, Brian, because you have done fantastic with this session. The whole tension of waiting, it's just like, waiting 5 minutes, 10 minutes, no sign of the doc. And on the flip side of that, seeing what the doc is going through, but being powerless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I'm ready for next session. And this is going to get interesting.
For sure. I mean, we knew it was going to end like this in some fashion. I just kind of had to stretch it out and see how it developed. Naomi, how about you?
Yeah, really intense session. On the one hand, I feel, kind of guilty that I couldn't wait it out. And I think that that's also Alice, like, no, we've got to trust. I'm sure it'll be fine. Keeping James, calm before he, goes off his rocker, and, okay, Adrian, we'll hear anything if Adrian's, but getting antsy, going to the toilet to get prepared, and just like trying to wait, I don't want to be the one to, I don't want to fuck it up. We need to stay together. But I think that at her core, Alice is a woman of action.
This is true.
And, we need to stick together. We need to care for each other. And I think that she just reached a point that, it's taking too long, and she might have wanted to try and stay, but she needed to do something. And I think that, so I just the same as Sal, ratcheting it up. I'm like, okay, we're going to hear Adrian scream, and then I have a reason to, but I don't need. Alice doesn't need the reason. I really enjoyed that, and just, well, I'd say Star as well. For Mac, for the interaction between Adrian and Savitri, and I wouldn't have been surprised. Like, is she? Will she? Will they? Accept it or not? It could have gone either way, and now we've
Still can,
still
apparently.
going anyway. So yeah. So I really very tense session, and just as Sal said, as a player, and I think the player and character here as one is just like ratcheting up the tension, like brilliant. Really love that, and very much looking forward to see how this all plays out or blows up in our faces.
I love not to talk too much about me and all of this, but I've always liked the idea of cranking up the tension as long as possible when nothing happens.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the more successful examples of that, because just waiting to see who was going to break first. And I would have put money that it was James, but I love the fact that it was Alice. Mac, talk to me about your thoughts.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. I genuinely, I know the reason that the dog has for each. Yes or no. It's just stressful picking one. Because just like, if you've seen, you can see the how I've drawn Adrian. He looks horrifying. But his design was always meant to be a fake out, that he's the one that looks the most intense and like he would be the one that would fall the quickest, but he was the only one that said no to the Golgoroth. He has no interest in understanding.
This helps.
But he can't just say no if it means they're in danger. So that's what's weighing. It's not weighing, do I want to know? Because he thinks, will knowing help? It's, do I deal with this? Because if I don't, then something could happen to them. Like, could she just call the gunman immediately if I don't? So he's kind of actually slightly hoping that one of you breaks, so he has an excuse to not answer. Like, oh no, my friends are fighting. I hate when that happens.
Those guys
I got a
again.
feeling that normally it's the GM who cuts scenes. Is that at one point we were cutting the scenes? It's like, no.
Yes, I know, and I was like, well, I could cut back and forth, but no, okay, no, they need a moment, and I always want to give people time when that happens, because these are potentially big decisions, and I like people to have time to plan them out, even though sometimes their characters wouldn't. So
yeah, but yeah, it's really fun again with Adrian meant to look very intense, and like the classic like Victor Frankenstein type, that his quandary at the moment isn't, do I want to understand? It's, will I fuck over my friends if I don't say yes?
Right. How will this make things worse?
Yeah, that's the main thing. I think my story is how well you made all of us just multiple times just cringe in absolute disgust at some of your descriptions, or just feel very uncomfortable. It was genuinely really amazing. Like whenever you described the mouth and petting it like a cat, I just Craig and I both like, nope, okay, we're out. Wishes, Adrian, I really want him to survive past next session. That would be amazing.
That's something we'll all have to find out together, but I like it too.
And next week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Craig, take us home.
Everything that everybody has said. Really enjoyed Mac's ability to stay in character, to speak as Adrian, to make decisions based, on where Adrian is. I mean, one of the beautiful things about being 18 episodes in is that we feel very comfortable inside of our characters now. So I really enjoy, Mac, you having an ability to stay and play in character, because that whole exchange back and forth, and same for you, Brian, you got right inside of SS, and I believed her from go. Lots of little details that you put in there that help kind of solidify who she is.
I like being creepy, man.
And get creep me the hell out, which is not easy to do. Yeah, this was probably not the right move. But I think that it was interesting for me for James because James didn't act first. And I think it's because I have developed two things I think were happening. And I verbalized some of it. One, I don't trust myself anymore. And I think I trust Alice more than I realized. And I think that's why I didn't act, which I thought was interesting for me as a player to kind of discover that about James. But now that it's go, like James has sketched out everything after this. I know exactly what's going to happen. I knew
the order of operations is set up.
Knew immediately I'm going to secure Loman. He's going to have to give me a reason why I don't kill him immediately. Make sure Sally and Alice are okay. And I'm going after the old lady. So, but as soon as he told me that she was important to her, I'm like, oh, that's not good for this old lady.
How far will James go?
He will not hesitate. So, I mean, he was one of the biggest things I was looking for through James is to figure out what leverage do we have, because we don't have numbers. We're running out of surprise. And me seeing that, which is hats off, Brian. I don't know if she was always out there or you kind of placed her there, but that's what I was looking for. Was I need to figure out an angle, and now I have one. And now, Alice has fired the starting pistol. Let's race. So I cannot wait. Go ahead.
Now you're sharing our plans with the GM, so
it's fine. I mean, honestly, I like to think I'm pretty good at keeping NPC knowledge separate from my knowledge, and having an idea of what's going on lets me do a little bit of planning.
Yeah. So it's
I appreciate it.
It's going to be an action pack. We're playing in a week.
This is a definite thrilling conclusion kind of episode. So hopefully you can all join us in a week.
I hope so too. Also next week on Monday, we're doing episode 3 of Blade Runner. So you want to make sure you catch that. Also action packed. Also everything's about to explode there as well. And if you're not watching Sentinels, the Sentinels RPG, you got to check that out. Had a great 2 sessions of that. Plus there's 2 previous session zeros you can watch where you create the world and create the characters. But having a ship ton of fun, and Outgunned is getting very close to its conclusion as well. So Brian, thank you for this. Love playing with the 3 of you.
You guys are the best. All right.
Howdy, friends. Thank you for watching. All our content is archived and organized in playlists on the Third Floor Wars YouTube channel. Check it out. And if you could like, follow, subscribe, and even set your notifications to this channel on YouTube and Twitch, we'd appreciate it, and it'll make sure that you catch all of our content. I talk with creators, designers, and experts across the gaming landscape in every episode of our podcast, Tabletop Talk. Open up your favorite podcatcher and search for Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. Support your creators. They make the content you love, and it's your support that makes it happen. If you want to help us, go to Third Floor Wars on patreon.com, and you can help us for as little as $1 a month. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Take care.